Hello, ladies and gentlemen. WeatherBrains 436, the pre-show. This is for June the 2nd, 2014. This is that magical part of the program where you get nonsense, boring stories, dull technical talk, and occasionally the show title comes out of this, as it did last week. So we will start this show in about 8 or 10 minutes, and if you're new to this, just move the slider over about that long, and you'll get the start of the produced program. I need to go back and look at the stats. I'd still say about 75% are listening, and 25% are watching. But I've not looked at the stats lately, so I need to do that. But a majority of our folks listen to the show. It's a produced podcast, and if you want the really slick version, you can just grab it on your favorite podcast app.
I've been listening to the wrong version. There's a slick version?
I'm about to say, yeah, we apparently have hidden that one from public.
I wasn't aware of that either.
Yeah.
Right, that's the premium paid version, I guess.
Hey, that's an idea, Rick Smith. We might finally get a paycheck.
We need to do one of those Kickstarter campaigns. For
there you go. Subscription only. Fund.
Exactly. You pay us. I think we should charge $500 an episode. Let's see if anybody is crazy enough to do that. And if so, we will have them committed right on the spot to a nice padded cell. All right, so let's bring in our guests. There's Aubrey. She's famous now. The hiccup thing.
Yeah.
You know.
It blew up.
Yeah. So what was this Inside Edition you were on tonight?
Yeah. I got into work and my news director came up to me and said, by the way, Inside Edition called. You're going to be on tonight as their kicker. So
that's awesome.
What affiliate is your station?
We're an ABC and Fox and CBS affiliate.
Okay.
What?
Got most of them covered.
Yeah, we pretty much have them all covered.
What do you run them on your different subcarriers? You know, the .2s? I mean, how do you?
We're primarily ABC, but we also I don't know what do they call it? Dualcast. We have the
multicast.
Yeah, on Fox and CBS. We acquired Fox about 2 years ago, and then CBS is new.
Wow. And we're on the verge of having nothing. By the way, while we're in the pre-show, if you have a job opening, please call me at 1-800-MrJamesNeedsAJob.com. Oh, brother. It's just like, you couldn't make this stuff up. I keep baiting these Sinclair people so they'll call me, but they never do, so I guess I've just been fired. They are turning off the transmitter of this place. They are turning it off, turning the license back in to the Federal Communication Commission, and it's going dark. And this is a major, affiliate in a mid-sized top 40 market.
I gotta go do a promo. I'll be right back.
Sense. Okay.
So will you be over on Valley Avenue in some Butler building doing the weather from now on, James?
We don't even think they have a Butler building. We think they have a tent. So we're moving from this channel is called ABC 3340, and that there are two full power UHF channels. And it's a rim shot deal. You got one to the east and one to the west. There's a low power transmitter in the city. But we moved to the highest UHF channel known to man, which is 68. Now, and understand now, that's not really a fair analogy, because now we're all transmitting on different channels. You see it as the old channel, but for example, I do believe our channels are over the air. The actual RF channels are like 5 and 9. With the digital conversion. So I don't know what channel 68 is, but...
Well, and the other thing, too, is that what a lot of the ABC O&O stations found out, a lot of them have lower VHF channel numbers, and they found that actually doesn't work as well for digital. The signal footprint actually shrunk for a lot of them because they went from UHF channels or VHF in the analog world that tended to do better in the analog world over to UHF or to VHF channels in digital that didn't do as well. And that was a big deal. I know that the station here in Raleigh is on channel 11, and you could get them pretty much all across the entire viewing area. And right after the digital transition, folks in Fayetteville, which is the second largest city in our viewing area, but it's 60 miles south of here, if you were inside, you couldn't get them at all, nothing. So
yeah, and you know, for a while we bottomed out or maxed out, I guess you could say, with satellite and cable subscribers. Now we're starting to see more people in our DMA receiving the signal over the air because they are cutting the cord, and that they are preferring to just buy what they want a la carte. And you know, we're just a strange situation though. We actually don't have a good digital signal in the city, but in the DMA it's massive. I mean, it's a massive signal. So what this is going to do, it's actually going to help us in the urban metro, but you get out of town, it's just not going to work. So, but again, if you have a job opening, just please call me when the show is over, and we'll talk later. All right, let's see if we can get our other guests on here. Tiffany, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you fine. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Hello, Tiffany.
Loud and clear.
Hello, Bill.
Hey, Tiffany, how are you?
Doing fine. Good to see you.
You too.
And once we get Vernon on here, we will have everybody, and we can actually start. You know, it's 2 minutes before showtime. This is like a world record.
No, we don't have everybody here yet.
Yeah,
that's true. But I can't start early because they're going to put us on television. What now? We're not there yet. They're going to put us on cable television here in just a minute. And as soon as we go up on the television side, we can get this show rolling here.
Well, James, I didn't want to have a duplication of last week, so I was prepared.
Well, but that gave us a great show title. So, you know, we typically will, we'll get a show title here soon. Hey, Vernon, can you hear us? We see Vernon.
Or at least his avatar.
But we don't hear him.
He signed the waiver for no WeatherBrains Google Plus test, James, so he's on his own.
Okay. It's a good-looking picture he's got there. I mean, looks
I
like
originally
not over his
friended some
kingdom.
football player for the Miami Dolphins. I had no idea there were all these Vernon Turners running around.
I guarantee you, we probably invited all kind of people on this show that have the same name as some of our guests. Because I've got a system now that works. Back when this was new, I had a hard time finding certain people, and I just started inviting people with that same name until I found the right person. But I think we're better now.
There he is.
We have two Vernons. Hey, Vernon.
I see what was going on. My phone definitely connected with it as well.
Okay.
All right.
Do you happen to have any headphones?
I do have headphones.
Okay, great. If you can stick those on, that'll be awesome. And now, are you working tonight?
I'm off.
Okay. We're all off.
And
so
not just because he had me as an instructor once.
Yeah, we're going to have some personal questions about your relationship with Professor Johnson there.
The one and only.
Yeah. So
Thank God for that.
Fine. Gone again. I got to do the show notes again. I'm the world's worst show notes guy. It's like I am horrible at this.
I'm sure you're
But I will do my best. All right, let's get the recorders going and we'll get started. We are on cable. Greetings to our cable television viewers. And here we go. The show open in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. WeatherBrains! This is the podcast for weather. All about weather. With weather geeks, weenies, dweebs, nerds, and dorks. I've been doing this all day. This is like a Friday for me, and it's really Monday. And Mondays I'm typically fresh. I've had some sleep and I'm energized, but for some reason my brain is shut down, but my mouth is moving. So this will be a great show tonight. This is WeatherBrains episode 436 for June 2nd, and we are into meteorological summer, and that is so exciting. And I'm also excited that Aubrey Urbanowitz was on a nationally syndicated TV program this evening. That was cool.
It was crazy.
So you are now an Inside Edition star after your hiccups incident made it. Now,
Yes.
they didn't make fun of you, did they?
No, they actually were very, very kind. When I came in today, my news director told me, and she said, now the producer promised it was a good, it was a good kicker story. It wasn't anything bad. It was very lighthearted, and it was quick, and it wasn't bad. But
let's go back to this whole thing now. I watched it, and you were amazing. I've had situations where my voice went out, or I was choking, or something. And how did you keep your composure the whole time?
I've been filling in on the morning show on Daybreak for 6 days, and that was last Thursday, so that was like day 5. And I'd actually been getting sleep except for that night before. I didn't sleep very well. I was tired, and when I don't sleep very well, I get nauseous because I try to eat, and then it doesn't sit well with me, and so I drank like a soda, which I never drink. And I think that's what did it, but I could feel it coming on, and I was standing there getting ready with the double box, and I was like, I can't ignore it. I have to like say something. And we had been kind of having fun with the last couple of shows and joking around, and I just tried to laugh it off, and I was hoping that, when the camera came on and you get focused, that it would go away, and it didn't. Hiccups are not like that, apparently.
Well, you performed in a marvelous fashion. It was a great example for all of us in the broadcasting business.
Thanks. I just tried to power through, but it was, I was tired that morning. It was, I don't know, and it feels worse to you because, to me it felt like it was the worst thing in the world. But the fiance loved it. Brooks watched. I think he's probably responsible for about 150 of those hits.
Yeah.
On YouTube. He has been nonstop watching that video. He thinks
Smart.
He thinks it's the funniest thing. But he told me tonight, he said, I'm proud of you for keeping your cool and just kind of, letting it roll off and just kind of, having fun with it.
And I should mention, we had an incident here in WeatherBrains one week where Brian Peters had gas the whole time. And, we just kind of cut him off. We just signed off with him. That's, yeah. So
that didn't make Inside Edition, did it?
No, it didn't. They had no interest in that. Nate Johnson, what's the goofiest thing that's ever happened to you on the air?
Oh, boy. I can't repeat it here, but this was pre-YouTube, thank God. And let's just say I had a little spoonerism with the words, or not a spoonerism, but I used the wrong letter to introduce a word. I was trying to say Brownwood City Limits. An extra T got in there where a C should have been, and that was that.
Oh, boy.
A close second.
I think we all have stories like that. Yeah, that would have been a great YouTube video.
A close second, and this is one of these things where Christmas reels are great because they get to take you completely out of context, but I was working weekends. This is in November in Texas. It's starting to get cold. We've got a big blue norther on the way, or it just come through, so it was starting to really feel cold, and we come out of a story on the Nutcracker auditions. The ballet company in Abilene was holding open auditions for the Nutcracker suite, and so we tease about that, and then they cut to me, and I'm a segue guy. I used to produce. I did a little producing when I was in Texas, and it was all about having flow, and so I segued without thinking about it, and I said, "Yep, sure, Amy, it's going to feel like Nutcracker season coming up." And that one got excerpted for the Christmas reel for the Christmas party 2 weeks later. My GM didn't see it in context, So the first time she saw it was at the Christmas reel, and I got a very dirty look from my GM. But it was good stuff.
Whoops. Yep, and we've all got weird stories. All right, John, you kind of shared your story last week. What's happening up in the great Northeast United States? I've been watching some Red Sox baseball games. It looks cold up the road from you up there. It looks like they've been in the 50s up there for those games.
It's been great, James. We've been under the influence of a rather persistent high-pressure system, and we don't want to see it go away because that means our dew points are coming back. So we've had windows open, no AC. It's been marvelous. Great for baseball, too.
Yeah, where we are down here in the Deep South, you actually fed us some of those lower dew points today, which helped us. It was a very refreshing day, even down here in the Deep South today, but that's great. Let's see, Rick, you're going to be on the hot seat tonight, I understand. I didn't like that note that Bill sent out about putting us on the hot seat about social media.
It sounded kind of ominous. It sounded kind of ominous, but I showed up anyway.
So, it looks like you might have some severe weather well to the north of you tomorrow. Looks like a pretty big outbreak up there, huh?
Yeah, I think so. We're kind of, you mentioned summer earlier, and you just mentioned refreshing where you are. Well, it's the near 70 dew points are back here the first time we've really had them all season long, thank goodness, and that's kind of cut down on our severe weather. But yeah, it's feeding into that. Looks to be a busy day up in Kansas and especially Nebraska tomorrow. Don't want that to happen anywhere, but I know they're going to be ready for it, and hopefully everything turns out okay.
Yeah, and Nate, are you doing the news tonight? I got some questions about these news stories floating around today. Are you got a news segment tonight?
I am. I got some news action going on tonight.
Good. There's a lot.
And I think I know which one you're talking about, and I have some information on that.
Good. I see. This is a tease. You got to hang on for Nate's news, and we got a double email segment from Aubrey this week. It's all going to be good. But Bill Murray is an Okie in Muskogee tonight. Are you in Muskogee, or where are you?
Well, actually, I understand what Kevin Sellis used to talk about on the show when he used to mention being cranky. It was 95 in Wichita Falls today, 93 here where I am in Lawton, the two places I were. So I understand what it feels like to be in Rick's county warning area now. So, Rick, I understand why you're cranky sometimes.
Well, you're just down the road. You're just an hour down the road. So.
Yeah, and I'm working my way your way. I'll actually be Duncan tomorrow and Ardmore on Wednesday and Thursday, and then in Norman on the weekend for the NWA mid-year meeting with Dr. Scala.
Well, so, if you're cranky today, you're going to be cranky the rest of the week because the weather's not going to get better.
Somehow I was afraid of that.
Did you say you're going to the NWA midget meeting?
Yeah.
That's right, James.
I get in trouble with the midget thing, so I'll be quiet now.
Boy, that's not. That's one of those things you're not supposed to talk about.
Well, exactly.
All right. Well, in fact,
you ready for success, James?
The BBC like banned. They can't say girl now. That's politically incorrect. So it's like you give up sometimes. So hey. And boy, I got a scathing letter about, we say sleep is for sissies. I mean, somebody just tore into me.
Oh, no.
Intolerant boob was the exact letter, or the exact words used there. So
did Brian Peters write that letter or what?
Yeah. Yeah. As a matter of fact, it was Brian, but he wrote it so well with great passion. But Bill, who we got on the show here this week?
Yeah, James, we got a couple of special guests. The first one I met at the Southeast Severe Storm Symposium at Mississippi State this spring. Had no idea he was Nate Johnson's one of his first students, but he is the chief meteorologist at WXVT in Greenville, Mississippi. Vernon Turner, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here. Very glad to be here.
Well, we're excited to have you on, and we'll be counting on you in a few minutes to jump in and tell us lots about your experience with social media and what goes on in your market. So thank you for being here tonight.
No problem. Hopefully I can make Nate proud.
Another guy with big pipes, man. So we got Morgan Palmer, and now we've got Vernon. So we've got two big pipes guys if we need some audio. That's awesome.
And tonight's format is here to talk about social media. So we brought in a new author. She's an entrepreneur, a strategist, and now a speaker, and has added author to her resume. She's our social media guest expert tonight. She appeared back on show 341 in August of 2012. Welcome our friend Tiffany Sunday. Tiffany, welcome to the show.
Hello, it's good to be back. I'm glad you researched to figure out what show I was on.
Well, I had to go back. I had to go back and search, and that was almost 100, a little more than 100 shows ago. So that's great.
Yeah.
But Tiffany, you got a new book. Why don't you tell us about that before we get started?
Well, when I was at the NWA up in Madison, I was talking about social media profiles and talking about social media and the power of it and how to use it. And I continue to speak, and I'd go to different groups. I also spoke to the Homeland Security Group and several early warnings for the weather for Mark Fox here in Dallas last year as well. And so everybody kept saying, would you write a book? This is great information. And so I put together a book, and I titled it, You Posted What? Because most people will say, you posted what? and then there's this lull, and then you're thinking, oh my gosh, is my career ruined? So I basically just put all the information together in a book, and I've been interviewing people for about the last couple of years, anywhere from futurists to social media experts, plus startups, just anyone that I thought would be in this space that could help, young adults. And I'm thinking teens, college kids, high school kids, because what they're putting together on social media will impact them, because nothing is ever deleted. But it really can help anyone, especially broadcasters, to realize everything you're putting out in the digital space, it is there for people to see, and there's companies that drill through it as well. And so it is doing well. I'm excited about the book, and it's been, receiving some great feedback. So it's a handy resource. I thought, if I wasn't doing this for a living, if I didn't touch social media every day, what book would I want? And that's what I put together.
Well, that's outstanding. And we've got 2 copies of it tonight. We're going to charge Nate Johnson with the responsibility of fielding the questions, as he always does tonight, from our Twitter audience. And we're going to let Nate pick the 2 best questions, and we'll send those winners copies of autographed copies of your book, Tiffany. So we're excited about that. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And of course, we have 3 of the finest practitioners of the craft of social media and weather, organically on the panel. Of course, James has a couple of armies that he has built in social media, and of course, Nate, if you've ever watched him, the main fear is that you'll get a keyboard, one of the keys off of his keyboard to hit you in the eye, because he is an amazing machine. He is live tweeting. And of course, Rick Smith is the pioneer for social media in the National Weather Service. So we thought it would be fun tonight to talk about this phenomenon that has really taken our industry quite storm. And I thought that would be interesting to talk about for just a minute. A few things have sort of changed our industry quite like social media have. And would you agree or disagree? And James, I'll start with you. And I'm talking in the background. Hello, James. Major Tom. Earth to Major Tom.
No, we had an internet outage, and you were sounding like whoop, 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 whoop. So try it again.
You sounded like silence, so I win. But anyway, James, the question was, social media has changed our industry substantially. Would you agree or disagree with that statement?
I guess you could say that. And again, let me just say up front before we talk about this, I'm not a social media expert. I am really not. I think I know a lot about interacting with people, and I've just taken what I've learned in person and applied it to social media. But I guess it has changed, because here's the thing that just blows me away. Today, June 2nd, it's a fairly routine weather day in my market. I reached far more people, I do believe, based on the metrics available to me from social media compared to television. And if you tell me that would happen one day, 3-4 years ago, I'd say you're crazy as a lunatic. So I'm reaching more people now with the few strokes on this little glass thing right here than I am on TV. So to me, that's a pretty big change.
And Nate, what would you add to that?
I think Terry Heaton has written, he's a former consultant with AR&D, and he's quoted Jay Rosen as talking about this is one of the biggest shifts of how we communicate. It used to be the television stations were mass media. You go on television, you broadcast it, it's a one-way thing, and if somebody wanted to get a hold of you, they could, but it's picking up the phone or it's writing a letter, and you're not really sure of what anybody else might think. And social media now allows for one, for much more of a two-way conversation between people on TV and the people at home watching television. It also allows the people at home watching on television to talk more effectively with each other. It's something that Jay Rosen has termed the great horizontal, and I love that image because it reminds us, I think, that audiences are not just passive automatons. And I hope that nobody in this group ever thought that in the first place. But audiences are people. They're varied. They're diverse. They're all over the place. And it's a great way to learn what your audiences want and whether or not the messages that you're trying to communicate are getting out there in the way that you think they are. And I think one of the rude awakenings of this business is that a lot of people are realizing that what they've been saying all along hasn't been transmitted as clearly as they had thought.
Now, I think it's interesting that Nate and James both brought up how social media has changed their engagement with their audiences. Rick Smith, how has it changed the gathering of weather information from a National Weather Service standpoint?
Well, it has changed and continues to change the way things are done in National Weather Service offices for sure. Touch on that engagement part. I mean, it really has opened the doors of our offices, the doors and the windows, and letting people see more of what goes on inside of here and letting us see more of what goes on out in the real world. I mean, you know, Weather Service meteorologists are, I don't want to stereotype, but, you know, a lot of us are geeky, introverted people. We're looking at computers, and we do look out the window, obviously, at the weather, but the social media has really opened up the engagement and really let us communicate and to both sharing information but also gathering information. That information gathering has been huge, so huge that we're, you know, the issue is not getting enough information. The issue is filtering through the information that's out there. So many people are talking about the weather, and there's a lot of really valuable information out there. The challenge for us is mining out those nuggets, and those things will be very useful to us. It's changing the way we do things for sure.
So Rick, you were a pioneer in the Weather Service. Talk about the challenges that you went through and some of the successes and support that you got as you sort of pulled through getting social media to the forefront in your office.
Well, I'm kind of like James. I don't consider myself to be an expert on social media, and I certainly wasn't the only person out there. I mean, we have a large following here. I didn't realize it, but yesterday was our 3-year anniversary being on Twitter in the office. I had started Twitter on my own account 2 years before that, so we kind of built up a following before that, but there was a lot of people involved in making it a success in the Weather Service. Rusty Billingsley, who used to be at the Southern Region headquarters in Fort Worth, who's now in Western Region, Tim Bryce down in El Paso, Corey Pieper. There's a whole list of people out there that were involved in making this a success. The challenges and the obstacles are the government and the government. No, we got through that. We got obviously, interestingly enough, in Weather Service standards and government standards, we really got into social media pretty quickly. We really got in there before it got really big, and I was very proud of that. And I was very proud of all the people that worked so hard to make that happen. That doesn't necessarily happen at the local office level where I am, but that happens up at the headquarters level, kind of greasing the skids for us. But there was a huge group of people that made this happen and continue to make it happen. We're still learning and still progressing and still evolving.
Now, Tiffany, something that Rick just mentioned there, is about how this, changed and evolved. Talk about, from your standpoint, how you latched onto social media and what you see coming down the road as the next big things.
Well, I think what intrigued me about social media is that my undergrad is communication. So social media is really digital communication. Most of the time we think of it as marketing, but it's really a new form of communication, just like the telephone was 100 years ago. And when I was putting the book together, I went back and researched, how did we adapt to the telephone? People thought, oh my gosh, it'd be the death of society. People wouldn't do any work because they'd be on the telephone. I even remember my great-grandfather complaining about the telephone when I was in high school. Social media is very similar. We are still adapting to this new form of communication, and it is very disruptive. It's changing every industry that we're, every industry, there's no industry that's not immune. And I think anybody in media is impacted probably the most because everybody now can, A, tell their story, they can upload it on YouTube, they can become a weather forecaster, and suddenly you have this proliferation of information that goes everywhere, and all you do is you run it off the iPhone. At the same time, you can reach thousands of people you couldn't reach before. And you can warn people. I find it very interesting that, sometimes we shy away from technology, but there is a balance, I think, with social media, and you have to recognize that balance. I think there's some great benefits to it. And again, it goes back to balancing this new technology, learning about it. How do you effectively use it? And so I think there's some good things about it. Just, again, we're adapting and we're learning, and we have to keep that in mind. And I think the public is going to have to learn behaviors that you do online, because it's no different than what you would do in person, because that's another thing, is we are adapting to this technology.
Well, that sounds interesting, because it sounds like to me that every panelist has said so far that you can't just make this happen. You have to just let your personality come out. James has obviously done that successfully, and Rick said that same thing. Tiffany, how much truth is there to that, where you can't make this happen, you just have to let it happen?
I totally agree, because there are people, like Jim Cantori is a very live personality. He's great on social media, he's great on Twitter, same with Brad Panovich, whereas I'm more of kind of a nerdy researcher, and it's a little bit more difficult for me to be on social media because I just don't think in 140 characters. So I think, again, we're having to think differently in communication. I'll put together a tweet post and then redo it because I think it sounds dorky. So again, it's learning a new communication style. It's also understanding that when you put that tweet out, it's not just going to you and a couple of your friends. That tweet could potentially go to millions of people all over the world, and then you receive instant feedback. And that's an adjustment too, because before the internet and before social media, we were all just communicating within our small groups. It would be with the people that we lived with or at school. Now we can say something and the whole world will respond. You've seen that with the revolutions. You've seen that on severe weather events. It suddenly becomes a very powerful communication tool that can grab a lot of attention very quickly.
So you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. James, that's
Nope.
interesting. Has there ever been a time when a tweet backfired on you, or another social media post that you can share with the audience?
By the way, whose dog is that? This is a Twitter conversation. Who's got the dog?
That's my dog. Let me.
Okay. That's awesome. This show is going to the dogs. I
Most people
probably, out of all the tweets, I think maybe the one I regret was a situation after a tornado event in my market. And I'd been up all night and no sleep and was cranky, and we had some loss of life, and I was just kind of struggling with it. In fact, I'm going to mute Tiffany real quick while she clears up the situation there. There we go. But this was, Diane Sawyer said something on television that just drove me nuts. I will walk by this television set, and I come in here for a brief break. We do a lot of early evening news here. We're on TV from 4:30 Central Time to 6:30 Central Time. But there's a little break where they come on and do this national news. And, she came on and said, rare tornado strikes Alabama without warning. And I usually, all that boneheaded stuff that's said on national television, it goes in one ear, it goes out the next. I think to myself, they don't understand the issue. They're in Manhattan. They don't deal with this. They just don't get it. And, they botched it, so what? They botch stuff all the time. But for some reason, I thought she insulted everybody in the weather enterprise, not just us, broadcast people, but those that work for the National Weather Service, those that have been involved in research over the years to make the warning so good, those in the emergency management community. And I put out a tweet that said, Diane, you say there was no warning. I say there was. Let's debate. I'll come on your show or you can come on mine. And the tone was just not right, and it got into a big stink the next day, and there were a lot of personal attacks on her, and again, she didn't understand this stuff. I mean, like me going to New York to critique an opera, it's just not my thing. But to give them credit, they did do a story the next night about how good the warnings were, and obviously she was wrong, and she never corrected herself, but that's fine. But I don't think that was the right venue to air out that grievance. So if there was one I regretted, it was probably that one. So I think when you're tired and you're cranky, you really need that count to 10 rule. Count to 10 before you hit the button. And
so that's probably one of the rules right there. We should wait and count to 10 before we hit tweet.
Yeah, we all get aggravated by stuff, and today all this political stuff that's been coming out, and I saw really good weather people just fighting with each other in vicious words today on social media involving a hot political issue that I do not want to talk about, because if you do, you get the but I think these guys need to wait and count to 10 and think, what good is this? And if you got such a gripe with somebody, maybe it's best to move it off this global platform and just kind of go one-on-one or something. So when you're aggravated, you're cranky, you're tired, remember, count to 10.
Well, someone who never has time to count to 10 when he's tweeting is our own Nate Johnson. And Nate, have there ever been any tweets you wished you hadn't sent out of those 28,000 some odd you've sent over your career?
Are you kidding? Yeah, there have been a couple, and because of where I work, I'm in television. These tend to result in, let's just say, uncomfortable conversations with management. And there's your show title, by the way.
Show title.
So this is the thing, and this is one of these things that I look at. People who post their Twitter bios and retweets are not endorsements and da 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 da. You know what? Nobody's going to look at that. And even if they do, that's not going to stop them from picking up the phone and calling your general manager or your news director or your boss or emailing or whatever. They're not going to care, and offers no legal coverage whatsoever. It doesn't cover your tail, and if the station wants to fire you, they want because you essentially maligned their brand by mixing your unfair comments, whatever. Guess what? There ain't no amount of disclaiming on your Twitter profile bio that that's your personal account, whatever. If you're working at a television station, I'm talking to media folks specifically at this point, but if you work either in a television station, radio station, website, or at any sort of high-profile position, and that's part of who you are online, guess what? No amount of disclaimer is going to save you. And the other thing is that I think a lot of people think that by creating personal accounts so they can get around that, doesn't matter. Whenever you walk out the door, if you're on TV, your face belongs to the TV station. So if you go out, you're always on the clock, whether you want to be or not. It's just the way it is, unfortunately. As a guy from CBS Standards came down and talked to us a couple years ago, and he said there are just some things that when you work for the Fourth Estate, you give up certain rights that everybody else has in exchange for having this job. And I thought it was a really eye-opening comment and something that I would have done well to remember better.
Now, I think Tiffany has something that she wants to say to Nate, but she is currently in the penalty box for a barking dog. So, James will have to remove her from the penalty box.
She can unmute herself, and we're good.
Okay, all right, Tiffany. We didn't realize you had the ability to get out of the penalty box yourself. So go, Tiffany.
Okay, I'm good. Well, I did not know that I could unmute myself. Well, I wanted to add a little excitement here, just didn't want you to think Dallas was boring.
Exactly.
Even though we're having dull weather. But no, I wanted to respond to what Nate said, because for the book I did talk with an IP attorney and several people that are experts in this, and they basically said that if you are working for a network, anything that you say is associated with the network, even though if you put on your Twitter account, look, anything I say is not associated with this account, the fact, like James and Nate and everybody here that is in the media, you are associated with that station. It is very hard to separate Jim Cantori from the Weather Channel, Anderson Cooper from CNN, or same way here, with Mark Fox at the National Weather Service. I'm going to pick on Mark here in Dallas. And even the weather people that we have and the broadcasters, we know them for their brand, and it's impossible to separate. And that's what the attorney said. He goes, in the public's mind, you are very much that brand, and as many disclaimers as you put out there, it's not going to cover you. And so, the Twitter accounts, in a sense, we rent them. We're leasing them. It's virtual space that we do not own, and Twitter at any point in time can shut it down. So that's another misconception, is that we own these accounts, in which we do not, nor do we own the content on them. So I just want to jump in on that with Nate, because that's an area that, most people say, well, I'm going to put a disclaimer in there, it'll cover me. Well, that's false. There's nothing. If you're sitting there talking about weather and you're underneath and you're still employed by that broadcasting company, it is going to come out underneath that, especially if you have the logo. The logo, pretty much, if you have a logo on your account, but, that says it all. There's no way you can separate it. That was the other key thing, is if you have a branded logo on your Twitter account. So that's just a few tips that I learned, if that helps.
Yeah, that's great, Tiffany. I want to jump in and comment on what you said as well as what Nate said. I'm not a full-time media guy. At the most, I was part-time here locally. Of course, when I was at the Weather Channel, I was full-time. But even as a part-timer or a fill-in, you're still representing the station. And I have to be very careful when I'm out in public. I'm easily recognizable, and I'm constantly stopped either for what is the forecast or why didn't you get it right, even though it wasn't my forecast. Mm-hmm. I'll give you a quick short story. Recently, I had my entire family with me. We were out on a Sunday morning for breakfast after church. It was a torrential downpour. We ran into a restaurant. The place was completely packed. There was no way we were going to get a seat. So I told my wife and kids, we're leaving, going back to the car. So we're running back to the car in front of the restaurant, and I'm stopped by a couple getting out of their car in the torrential rain asking me about the weather. And on the one hand, I want to say, I don't want to have anything to do with this. But then on the other hand, they know who I am. And the next thing might be a phone call to the station. So I stood in the pouring rain and discussed the rain with them. The other point I wanted to make was, on the social media side, I think that there's a couple of things that concern me. I'm nowhere near the gurus in social media. I'm just dabbling in it. But what I find is, like, I talk to students an awful lot, we run the risk of losing the art of personal communication. The face-to-face discussion that is going away when we do social media worries me a lot. We convey an awful lot by the way we speak, the words we choose, our facial expressions. Social media takes that out of the picture. So I think in some sense we may even lose that responsibility of how we treat others when we use social media.
I want to jump in though, because Tiffany, you said something about your research with the telephone. Mm-hmm. Is that something that you saw with the telephone, that people are losing the personal touch? Is that are we hearing echoes of the past with that?
I think so. I mean, I went back because I was curious. I mean, this is a huge disruption. I honestly believe the digital revolution that we're in right now will be bigger than the industrial revolution. And I was curious on how we handled all this upheaval 100 years ago. And people did talk about the telephone. It was scary to them to think that you could pick up this device and call your neighbor without walking to them. But in many ways, with that, you could still hear the voice. It's not like with social media now where so much is removed, and with avatars you can make statements and never take ownership of it. Whereas on the telephone, you still had to take ownership of what you were saying because you identified most of the time who you were. So I think, I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, Nate, on the communication in the telephone. Did I answer it, Nate?
Well, I think so. I think the question was, with regards to the comments, and I agree with John about how it can be impersonal and it allows people another step of anonymity, which and a lot of times they use not well. But having said that, the telephone, I think, provided that one level of abstraction to where I can hear you and I hear the tone of your voice, but that's it. I'm not seeing you. I'm not seeing your expressions, that sort of thing. And is social media, where we're actually taking the voice out of it, we're just looking at typewritten words, is that is that just a rehash of the same thing that we did with the telephone, or is this a new growth pain that we should really be concerned about?
I think it's a growth pain. I don't know, it's because I'm trying to think here how much we should be concerned of. I think if people are aware of it and make an effort to maintain the human relationships and the connection. When I correspond with people on the internet, I also make sure I'm corresponding with them in person, either on the phone or via email, but I make sure I'm not losing that human touch. However, when I talk with students, and I spoke with some students last week, to them, they do not know that personal touch. So yes, I would agree to that, Nate, that we are losing that human connection where they do not seem as in tune to personal feelings, and it's almost as if they're glossing over the conversation and not staying in tune to what that person's really saying. They're not as empathetic, and they're not picking up on the social cues that you would expect that they would. And I think the phone was an easier adaptation. You can tell if someone's upset. You either hear them crying, you can hear them laughing, you can hear their anger. In social media, it's very hard because you're having to decipher exactly how they think and feel off of a sentence. And, some people write sarcastic. They don't mean to be sarcastic. And so instead of it being a simple line of communication, we're now becoming very convoluted, complex, data points. We're all trying to figure out what everybody is trying to say, and it's actually taking, I think, and sometimes more time to communicate. We're making it a little bit more complex than it should be.
Well, and something interesting that came up just a moment ago is, and Tiffany, you said this, we're leasing this space. So I'll ask Vernon because he's taking a power hit where he is, and I want to make sure he can hear us and that we can hear him. Vernon, can you hear us? And maybe not. So I'll turn to Nate and ask this question. Nate, is your station, or are you hearing of other stations that are putting some sort of requirements on their talent to give them the keys to their social media?
They haven't here. They are. I mean, we are. I think just about anybody on-camera talent is expected to be on Twitter and or Facebook, but there haven't been any pushes toward requiring this, the employee to turn those keys over. And in some cases, at least a couple of states, they've either made that illegal or they've at least explored the possibility through legal work to prevent that. But at this point, they haven't asked us that here. I do know that a lot of stations are requiring their talent to set up accounts that, with the expectation that they will belong to the TV station. And so a lot of places are, you have your personal, quote-unquote, personal account, but then the station, you're creating a separate one for the station that's got the station's call letters or brand name in it, that sort of thing, with the understanding that you might get to keep your personal account when you leave, but that the station account would potentially stay with the station, which I think it's an interesting move. You're essentially creating a throwaway account, but that's, to me, that's not what social media is about. It's about building relationships, and I don't want to build a relationship with a throwaway account.
No,
totally agree.
Like a flip phone that you just toss in the garbage when you're through with it. But Dr. Scala, have you seen anything like that in your circles?
From what perspective, Bill?
From television stations requiring their talent to, to turn over their social media accounts.
What we hear is the number one priority is not social media. The number one priority is to get the forecast and to prepare the forecast and deliver a top-notch professional presentation. But on a side, yes, you are expected to add into Facebook or Twitter when the time is available to you. And those accounts are the television station's accounts, not your private accounts.
Now, James, you've amassed quite a following, probably over, at least 2 million aggregate followers, I guess. Not 2 million, maybe 200,000 on your accounts. If I asked you how you went about doing that, I think I have a feeling that I know what you would say, but I want to hear it anyway.
And let me just say this: if these new owners come in and try and hijack my account, oh, that's going to be fun. If they
were social media before social media was cool, James.
So these jabronis come in here and ask me to give my social account to them. Here, you get all the followers, you get the password. It belongs to you now. You can have it, but that'll be $10 million. So that's the asking price for the new jabronis if they're listening. And we're actually broadcasting this on their cable channel, so they might be. But back to your question, Bill. I'm an early adopter, and I think that's important. I'm a ham radio guy. I just like this stuff, and I do it when it's there. I sign up for about everything. Most of it goes away. Some of it sticks. So I think one of the important things was the fact that I was on it early, and all along I've done a lot of things. I've tried to avoid topics that aggravate people. One thing I don't understand, I see a lot of meteorologists, some that work for the National Weather Service, and some that work in broadcasting start doing political stuff. And I'm not so sure they understand this nation is very, very divided. There is a great, division in this country.
Polarized.
And yeah, it is. And you just can't, if you do that, you're going to make half the people angry. I don't like politics. I don't like talking about it, and I'm sure not going to get into it on the Twitter. So I avoid things that polarize people. Even football. I've seen Bill, I've seen you put out a Roll Tide, man. Roll Tide, RTR. Yeah. Come on now. And so you make half the state mad when you do that, and I'm not going down that road, So I avoid controversial things. And when it comes to, people, I try and answer them. If they ask a question, I am honored. I should be honored that they came to me. There's a lot of people in this market that they could ask the question to, but they chose me. And if they took the time to ask, I think I should find the time to answer them, and I try and do that. If I missed a question along the way, yes, especially in recent years with all these people, but still I do my best to answer every question, and I follow people that I think are real. I try to follow people back. I've seen some people with 8,000 followers, and then they follow one person. What are you telling people? You're telling people you're a jerk. I want people to hear me, but I don't want to hear you. And that just doesn't make any sense. And yes, I understand using Twitter list, and that's really what I do. But I engage with people. I listen to them. I try and pass along information that's useful. I don't know why I've become the information bureau in this city. I have no idea why people send me traffic and news stuff, but they do, and if it's helpful, I'll turn it around. I try not to spam people. I know people think I retweet everything, and I don't. I would say I retweet about 5% of the material that people send to me, including sunsets. So I'm very selective, and I try and engage with people and provide information that they can use. And I guess it's worked so far. I don't know, Bill. I think on Twitter it's 143,000. And like 160 something on Facebook, and I guarantee you 160,000 people don't like me. They're clicking like over there because they're trying to get weather information. But let's don't stop this conversation before we talk about how Facebook is a rotten, horrible way of disseminating severe weather information.
Totally agree.
So talk about that for a second. Rick, why don't you carry that ball for a minute?
Yeah, Facebook does have its issues. Twitter is a much more instantaneous tool. You're getting the whole story. You're getting every tweet. With Facebook day to day, you don't really know what you're getting. The algorithms change constantly. It's very much a moving target, and we really encourage people and urge people not to use Facebook as a source of critical life and death weather information. We did our second annual tornado drill on social media back in March, and one of the goals of that was one of the goals was to show how powerful social media can be, but one of the other goals was to show people that Facebook really stinks for getting weather information. People were just getting our tornado warning message 2 days later, a day later. We don't know what the reach is on a page, and if anybody is depending on Facebook for a tornado warning or something that's going to save their life or their family's life, then they've got big problems. Now, we had some success stories back last May on Facebook where people said, if I had not seen this post, then my daughter would have driven into this tornado, or we would have been in the wrong spot. So there are nuggets of success out there, but overall, if I had to choose, it'd be an easy choice and choose Twitter over Facebook for disseminating that very timely, critical life and death information.
Now, Tiffany, that seemed to hit a nerve with you. Anything you wanted to add what Rick said?
Well, I actually wanted to bring up, we've hit a hot point on Twitter because I'm watching my Twitter feeds, and so Tim Bryce, I promised I would bring this up, is that there is a lot of debate now out there. People have been tweeting to me saying, okay, who really owns the accounts? Who owns the tweets? And if you look at the terms of service of Facebook, LinkedIn, everything out there, buried in all that language, it says Facebook owns anything that you post on there. It will say it in the terms of service. They also say in their terms of service that they own this information through perpetuity, and they also will offer it to anyone that has the right to ask them. This is on Twitter's terms of service. This is on Facebook's terms of service. And so as I repeated again, and I mentioned this in the book, not as much because again we're targeting, the book targets teens, but when I talked with a IP attorney that focuses on social media accounts, he has represented several people in Houston, and he was saying that at the end of the day, these accounts are really owned by Facebook and Twitter, and they can pull the plug. And it's that when you put the information on there, the stations technically cannot own that because Twitter owns the accounts. We are simply borrowing the space. Like right now, we're on Google+. They own this content. They own the space that we are operating on. If you post on your own website, like if I blog on my website and I have copyright at the bottom of it, then I own that content because it's sitting on my website. And so that's a huge distinction out there. But if you're reading through the terms of services on all these platforms, it will explain to you in great, boring detail who exactly owns the content, and it's none of us.
So James,
what about Instagram? Same thing with them?
Instagram will be interesting because they said that their users own the content, but who bought Instagram? Facebook. So we'll see how much control that Instagram can keep. But that was the best thing about Instagram. That's why I use Instagram more than I use Facebook, is that Instagram had promised its users that we do not own your content, we will not share it, we will not sell it. Whereas that's not the case for Mark over there on Facebook, or Mark Zuckerman, because it's a public company, they have to make money.
So real quickly, a consensus, James, is Twitter your most important social media channel?
Well, I don't know if, I guess you could say that, but it's like apples and oranges. Like I use Instagram in some cases to communicate with young people. You get a lot of 12 to 24-year-olds that are using Instagram, especially 12 to 16-year-olds. That's kind of the starter social media, at least in this market.
Absolutely.
But clearly when it comes to disseminating weather information and getting information back, Twitter is the best choice because of the large user base and the fact that they do not filter your posts. On Facebook, if you use one of their pages, then you're reaching, 2 to 5% of the people that like you, that are looking for information, which is totally unacceptable. It's horrible. And Google Plus, I've heard different stories if they filter. If they do, I've not noticed any filtering. Google Plus does not have as many active users, and everybody say there's crickets over there. But that's what they said about Twitter, and that's what they said about Facebook. So Google Plus, I call it Facebook without the stupid. Because you tend to have kind of a higher level of engagement there. But yeah, I'd say out of all the social media platforms, Twitter is probably number one in terms of the importance.
So Aubrey, is it the same for you? Is Twitter your most important social media channel?
Oh yeah, by far. I don't use Instagram, and Facebook it's exactly what James said. It filters it too much. I kind of made the decision to not even use Facebook for severe thunderstorm warnings this year because, I can't guarantee that people will actually get them, because they filter them so much, and Twitter is just such a better platform for getting that kind of information out. And then, to be honest, it's hard to get that severe weather information from Facebook anyways, so that's a whole different topic, but yeah, I think Twitter is probably the most important outlet that I use.
So Aubrey, what else are you playing with these days in social media circles? Any other tools or resources that you like?
No, we use the social news desk, but I honestly don't like it because I use it for Twitter because Twitter doesn't filter that content, but Facebook does, and I don't get that response back when I use Social News Desk. So, I don't know if Facebook filters a lot of that stuff if it comes from that third party, but I don't use.
I think they penalize you if you use Social News Desk. In fact, I'd almost be willing to bet money that they do with that EdgeRank system. If you use a third party deal like that,
they used to, and they found that, but the folks at Social News Desk are adamant that that Facebook doesn't do that anymore. and I haven't seen any recent data. Tiffany, have you seen anything recently about that, or are we still going on? The last thing I saw was going back a few months.
I haven't seen anything else, but I have seen changes to where they're messing with, what is in your timeline. I saw someone yesterday posted, why am I seeing something that's 2 days old in my timeline at the top? Why, Facebook? I have literally almost stopped using Facebook because of the info. I go over there and the information's either dated or it's the algorithms have truncated the information to where it's something I do not want to see, or I post something and no one ever sees it. And so, I predominantly use Twitter and LinkedIn and Google Plus and Instagram because I know the information will get out.
It's funny you mentioned that because Ari Sarsalari from Huntsville posted something on his Facebook page the other day, and Ari, I hope I don't get in trouble with you for mentioning this, but basically said, look, people, I'm going to start filtering people on Facebook because it seems like all I get are these, the top 10 list images or things that he doesn't, stuff that he doesn't care about, and it's all become junk. Even though some people find it interesting, cute, inspirational, whatever, that he's not getting the kind of value out of what Facebook is serving him, and as a result, he's using it less, or at least wanting to.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Every time you change it to most recent to try to get those most recent posts, Facebook changes it, and daily I have to go in and change it to most recent, and they keep changing it back to top stories or whatever it is. But I'll post weather information and what I think is kind of fun weather information, not boring stuff, and those posts get very little views and feedback. But I remember on my sister's birthday I posted a picture of us when we were kids, and it had almost, I don't know, over 1,000 reaches, or and 100 and something, or a couple hundred likes and stuff like that. Stupid things like that gets out there, but yet the weather information doesn't. I don't get that.
So that raises an interesting question too. You're talking about the tools that we use. So Nature, an early adopter, and James says he's an early adopter. What tools are you using to do these power tweets that you do?
In terms of the platform, I've used. I think Twitter is, for me, just like it seems like for everybody else, has come out on top in terms of not only being able to get information out quickly, but knowing that people who look for it will be able to find it. If they've got Twitter up on their screen, the tweet's gonna, it'll probably fly by with a bunch of other stuff, but at least it's there and it's not being suppressed. In terms of tools, I actually am fairly boring. I have a TweetBot on my iPhone that I found I like. It works pretty well. But for everything else, I'm using the official Twitter app, like on my MacBook. That seems to be what works fairly well. Sometimes I will fire up TweetDeck if we're in a severe weather situation. I'll fire up TweetDeck so that I have the columns with the different hashtags and things, so that I can keep tabs on what other people are saying in a more direct way. But I'm fairly vanilla. I haven't found anything yet, and I'm open to this, but I haven't found any apps yet that are worth what I pay for them and the learning curve for the kinds of things that I do.
So James, how about you? What are your favorite tools for disseminating information?
I am a TweetBot guy. I use TweetBot on my computer, and I use TweetBot on my tablet, and I use TweetBot on my phone. And the importance, I use lists. I have to. And again, I follow, 60,000 people or something. If I were to look at that stream, it'd just be this constant noise. So I use lists. I've got on TweetBot on the computer, I've got it set up in columns. I've got a weather list. I've got a news list. I've got my mentions. I've got the direct messages, and I've got a search column open. And it works very well, and it syncs with the other apps in terms of where you are. And you can also view the list very easily in the tablet version and the phone version. So TweetBot is very important for me. I've got Hootsuite. I always have it in the browser. If I need to throw out something across everything, I can do it in a hurry, but I just don't use it a lot. But with Hootsuite, you've got control over Facebook and Twitter and Google Plus. But I use them differently. I'm not a big fan of cross-posting to everything. I think Twitter is different. I think Facebook is different. Google Plus is different. And Instagram is different. And I put out the same thing across all the platforms. It looks like a robot did it. So I will typically use them differently. But for Facebook, I'd use the canned Facebook app for the phone and the tablet and the web interface. And same thing for Instagram and Google Plus. I think the Google Plus apps are better than any of them. They're fantastic. They're really good.
So take us inside. Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, hold on, Bill. I just want to mention something else. That's a little. You mentioned cross-posting from one thing to another. I've got some of that set up in some ways, but I think one thing that bothers me more are people who have things like TweetDeck or something like that, where they're cross-posting to the same content to multiple Twitter accounts at the same time. There's an exception, I think, here for if you're in one of those situations where you have a personal account and then your station requires you to have maybe a station branded account or something. But what I see a lot of times is, there might be a station that's got 4 or 5 meteorologists and they're all tied up into the system, and so somebody pushes a tweet and it goes out to all of them at the same time, which it looks dumb if you're following the different people. Clearly, the different people didn't post the same thing all at the same time. And to me, that spoils the personal touch and the magic of it, I think.
So Rick, take us inside the Weather Service in Norman when a big event is going on. How are you handling this from a staffing standpoint and from a technology standpoint?
Well, that's gotten to be a major thing, obviously, in the Weather Service. It's getting to the point in lots of offices now where social media is no longer we'll do it if we have time, or if we have an extra body, or if the WCM is bored and doesn't have anything else to do, he'll do it or she'll do it. No, it's in our office. It's a position. It's just like a warning forecaster. So if it's a big event, if it's pick a date last year, there's a full-time person there that's doing that almost exclusively. And so that's one of the biggest issues inside National Weather Service offices around the country is dealing with that, changing the culture in the offices to moving away from what we've traditionally done to breaking that culture, breaking that mold, and saying, social media is not just this fad thing. It's not just something we'll do if we have time or if we have an extra body. It's in our office. It's a high priority, and we do it. We dedicate a person to that on an event, especially a moderate or a high-end type event. We use in the office here. We've transitioned to using TweetDeck versus Hootsuite recently. There's just some functionality there that's a little bit better for what we do. And so we don't do any in our office. We don't do any cross-posting at all. Everything is kind of done individually, the different content for the different platforms. Occasionally there may be something, but you're not going to see hashtags in our Facebook posts and Facebook links in our tweets and things like that. That's going to be
bless you.
Yeah. So it's a high priority for us, and we try to devote the resources to it to get sure it gets done. Again, it's maybe not. You're not going to get the same volume or the same content maybe for thunderstorms that we're having tonight up in north central Oklahoma as you would for a tornado outbreak, obviously. But when we want to be there when it matters the most and pumping out the information as fast as we can.
Thank you, Rick. Aubrey, we got you back for a minute. Talk about a good social media success story from your time on television.
Oh, geez, put me on the spot.
Sorry about that. Well, while we've got you, we have to keep you. We have to use you. We have to put in all your hard work over there.
You've got me for about 20 more minutes, so I'm good in between shows for a little bit. Storm reports are good to get, and I actually make a lot of contacts through social media, so I can make those relationships with viewers and interacting with viewers, commenting back. Those people who I know check either Facebook or who are on Twitter, and I can ask them, questions about a storm or an area or something, but I can actually build those relationships, and then I learn, what they do. And then I ended up, like last year, going on a meta helicopter flight and doing a weather story about weather impacting medical flights last year. So I build those relationships with some of these viewers, and I can make contacts out of them. So I think that's probably been one of the biggest successes.
Cool. James Spann, I know you can probably point to several, but is there one that stands out in your mind as a real success story?
Well, you know, part of our problem in the television business, we're doing Ron Burgundy newscasts from the 70s for the most part. And that is not something that young people are interested in. In fact, it's something that a lot of older people are not interested in. In fact, I believe if we don't change, we'll die like the newspapers, but in terms of these local television newscasts. But I can reach a lot of people that never would consider watching me on television during severe weather. And I would even venture to say a lot of people that follow me that are under the age of 30, they have no idea I work for a television station. Ultimately, they might figure it out because they see links going to the TV station website, but they just follow Spann because it's a cultural thing to do, like on the campus of the University of Alabama. And I think on April 27, 2011, that was the tornado outbreak here where we, in our state, lost in one day 252 lives. I was able to reach a lot of people through social media, and I think there are people that are alive today walking around because of getting the message through Twitter or Facebook or something back then. So to me, that's my classic example. And every time we have severe weather, and we have not had a lot in recent years, but the quality and the volume of information I get, and especially from rural areas. It used to be you couldn't buy a report in some of these places. Now not only do you get a report, you get a picture. And that is, to me, that is just stunning, the quality of information we get. And no, they're not all trained, and most of them aren't, but they can send a picture and describe what they're seeing. And so I think it has clearly enhanced the severe weather coverage that we do here. It's helped to reduce the number of false alarms, and it has just been a marvelous thing. But the biggest success story was April 27th for sure.
Absolutely. Dr. John Scala, you've got one to share too, right?
Yeah, Bill, I was just thinking back to our coverage of the approach and then the landfall of Hurricane Sandy. Now, we do not get, in central Pennsylvania, we do not get direct hits, obviously, from tropical cyclones. We deal with the aftermath, which is usually the wind and the flooding rain. But what we did, we had pretty much live coverage wall-to-wall with the approach of the cyclone, and giving viewers updated information as to where it was going to make landfall and what the potential impacts were going to be for our viewers. What we did at the same time, there were 2 or 3 of us working that, it seemed like that entire day into the evening. We had whoever was doing the live updates at one end of the studio, and then we had at least 1 or 2 of us working in a chat room. And we had, at one point, more than 1,000 people in that chat room asking us questions, and we kept taking turns from something as simple as, when do you think the peak winds will be? What is the potential for loss of power, significant damage, how much rain, where is the center of the cyclone right now? So we were actually covering it on the air live, but also covering it within the chat room, much like you would have maybe with NWS Chat, where we were working directly with the National Weather Service, which, by the way, I love. I do that constantly when I'm working. But here was an opportunity for the viewers to, while listen on the air, as well as send us quick notes or messages, and we could respond on the fly. It worked out extremely well.
Well, that's an interesting point. And James, why haven't we done that more within our circles at Alabama WX and the television station? Why don't we use live chat more?
I used to have some live chats posted back in the early days, and I had a lot of problems with profanity and clowns that just ruined it for everybody. And after enough of that, I just finally said enough's enough. I would imagine there are probably platforms now that filter out a lot of that stuff. You can't filter it all out, but I spent most of my time kicking people off those things instead of focusing on content. So that was my problem, and I have not dabbled in it since then.
And so, Tiffany, do you cover that in your book in terms of targeting teens and younger people in terms of bullying and the internet and how to handle situations that could arise in these social networks?
Yes, I do. I have a whole chapter on, managing your social media presence, and I even have a section in the back that has bullying links. But it's really, helping young people understand how do you communicate effectively on social media, and then also how to build your digital profile, because the digital profile has replaced the resume, and it's also a tool that banks use for loans. And, for insurance companies, I refied my mortgage last year based on my social media profile, because they wanted to verify employment, and since I'm self-employed, they wanted to see what I do all day. So I said, here, I'll send you 4 links, and you can see what I do. So the social media footprint is growing in influence. I mean, you joke, we laugh about it sometimes, but I interviewed 4 data mining companies, and it's amazing what these big companies, insurance companies, healthcare companies, they're watching us. So if you're doing something you shouldn't be, or if you're drinking too much, they will flag that and watch your movement, raise your rates, or drop you altogether. But there's also some very positive things out there too for the young meteorologist students. They can use Campus to Careers, they can use PathBright, HireArt. These are some great new companies coming about that help these young college students, build some powerful digital profiles out there that will help them in their career. Plus the power of YouTube. And, as a start out Met, you can go out there and build your brand based on social media and have more negotiating power when you start, or you can find something new altogether. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of great opportunities. Again, it goes back to what we all first started talking about. Social media is a technology tool. It is a new evolution of the communication, just from the time we went from the printing press, the telephone, and now we have digital communication. It's how you manage it is how it can benefit you. If you manage it poorly, it can hurt you. If you're good at managing it, just like your credit score, it can be a very powerful asset for you.
So I want to make one comment, and then I have a question for the panel that we'll use to wrap up the conversation. First, if there are any insurance companies watching, I enjoy my Cheerwine in moderation. So, I'm always enjoying it, but enjoying it in proper moderation along with a healthy diet and exercise. All right, question from... or a statement is all part of a complete healthy breakfast. Tim Bryce put a statement out there on Twitter. I'm going to ask this. This is a agree or disagree, and give me 2 sentences to support your position, and then we'll use this to wrap it up, because I think it's a really good conversation ender, because we're running late. We need to get on. For broadcast meteorologists, this is the statement. For broadcast Mets, the TV broadcast is now just one of many equally important broadcast platforms. Do you agree or disagree in a sentence or 2 to support it? Aubrey, we'll go with you.
I agree, because I think, A, on perfect weather days, people aren't inside watching the news, but they're checking their phones wherever they are. And B, the younger generation isn't sitting at home watching the local news.
Bill Murray, what do you think?
I agree 100%. I think James led us through and to the promised land over the past decade or so with all these different things, and it's just been a fun ride watching all the other channels become just as important as the boob tube.
James Spann, what do you think?
Yeah, let's be real. I'm about to go on television here in 20 minutes, okay?
You need to change shirts, by the way.
People, I've got my suit over here. These people know what the weather's going to do. They saw it on their phone. They're going to they're not going to wait for some boob on television, late at night to tell them what the weather's going to do. They know that. We have to change. We have to provide some kind of value-added content. So it's just a tool in the arsenal. But here's the problem. My salary is derived from the television weathercast. You can't monetize easily social media. You can, I know, there's a lot of these, deals where they sell ad messages in your stream for you, but it's very hard to do that. So we're still in this world where our paycheck is coming from this, dying entity in here, and we've got to figure out a way to move everything into some model where it all works monetarily. But no, I reach more people on social media than television on a routine day. Not on a tornado day, but on a routine day.
Dr. Scala, do you agree with James, or do you think TV is still more important than social?
I agree that James used more than 2 sentences. And I also agree.
I'm going to blow the buzzer.
You're contributing to global warming, James.
I agree, Nate, 100%. The television industry is changing, and to reach that varied audience, you need to use all channels.
Rick?
I agree. I think it's all important. I mean, people say, well, if we're going to do social media, what are we not going to do? Well, we got to do it all. And I think that goes for the broadcast media too. I mean, there's an audience out there, and there's a group of people out there that are never going to be on Twitter, that are never going to be on Facebook, that are going to be turning on the television when the sirens are going off or the skies get cloudy. But there's a huge group of people out there that will never watch television for weather, and I think it's critical that anybody that's doing weather is on social media talking about the weather, and we have to go where the people are.
Tiffany, do you agree, or is TV still the king?
I think I agree with everybody. If it wasn't for weather, I don't know what the broadcast networks would do, because that's probably one of the main reasons why they still tune in. Honestly, if we have severe weather, I check Twitter first, and then I'll go to Fox 4 here in Dallas or Channel 8. Or I go over there and look and see what Mark Fox is talking about. I mean, if we're out and about and we're not in front of the TV, it's immediate Twitter. And I have a list, and it's Texas severe weather list. So I immediately go to my list for the key people here in Dallas. And, you just know how to find your information. Just kind of like James said, you use the list. And I agree with everything people said. You still have people that are not on social media. I wrote this book primarily for parents that are not actively on social media, so they'll know what their kids are doing. So you still have a huge segment of the society that is relying on TV, so you can't ignore that.
I'll finish up by saying I agree and disagree. I think I'm with James that, on the one hand, if your intent is to get weather information out as far and wide as possible, then I agree with it. Social media channels are as important as the television side. On the other hand, if your paycheck is derived from television advertising or advertising from a website or something, then television is still an important piece of that, because nobody, to my knowledge, has figured out how to make a killing on social media and to do the kind of, to earn the kind of salary that we're able to get doing the TV stuff on the website. Maybe a couple of people have. I'd love to have them on the show because I want to know how they do it. But I tend to agree more than disagree with that caveat. And with that, Bill, anything else before we wrap up?
No, I think it's been a great discussion, and I want to thank the panel for all the great, lively input, and I guess we can go from there, James.
Yeah, we're far from over. We got Nate's news. There's all kind of news to talk about. We've got the email inbox, and we're going to do Aubrey coming out of the WeatherBrains because she's got to go do the late news. We got Picks of the Week and much more as WeatherBrains rolls along.
WeatherBrains 101 with Professor Peters.
This marks the first week of the Atlantic hurricane season, which will run until November 30th. Long-term averages for the number of named storms is 12. For the number of hurricanes is 6, and for the number of major hurricanes is 3. For 2014, the first several tropical systems will feature Arthur, Bertha, Cristobal, Dolly, Edouard, and Faye. The Tropical Weather Outlook is issued 4 times daily and briefly describes significant areas of disturbed weather and their potential for tropical cyclone formation during the next 48 hours. The issuance times are 2 a.m., 8 a.m., 2 p.m., and 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. A special tropical weather outlook will be issued to provide updates as necessary in between regularly scheduled issuances of the Tropical Weather Outlook. A standard package of products consisting of the Tropical Cyclone Public Advisory, the Forecast Advisory, the Tropical Cyclone Discussion, and the Wind Speed Probabilities is issued every 6 hours for all ongoing tropical cyclones. A special advisory package may be issued at any time to advise of significant unexpected changes or to modify watches or warnings. The Tropical Cyclone Update is a brief statement to inform of significant changes in a tropical cyclone or to post or cancel watches or warnings. It is used in lieu of or to precede the issuance of a special advisory package. The Tropical Cyclone Update is also used to provide a continuous flow of information regarding the center location of a tropical cyclone when watches or warnings are in effect and the center can be easily tracked with land-based radar. All National Hurricane Center text and graphical products are available on the web at www.hurricanes.gov. You can also interact with NHC on Facebook at NWSNHC. Notifications are available via Twitter when select National Hurricane Center products are issued. In its 2014 Atlantic Hurricane Season Outlook, NOAA's Climate Prediction Center is forecasting a near normal or below normal season for the Atlantic Basin. The main driver of this year's outlook is the anticipated development of El Nino this summer. El Nino causes stronger wind shear, which reduces the number and intensity of tropical storms and hurricanes. El Nino can also strengthen the trade winds and increase the atmospheric stability across the tropical Atlantic, making it more difficult for cloud systems coming off Africa to intensify into tropical storms. If you have a weather question, drop an email to question@weatherbrains.com.
Letters. We get letters. We get stacks and stacks of letters.
All right, so the inbox is full tonight. Let's see. This one is from Chris White. It is an article about the deterministic dilemma with forecasters, and oh shoot, I lost who wrote it.
Sean Sublet in Roanoke, Lynchburg.
Thank you. A fantastic article, and I just want to read the last part of it. He doesn't believe that the general public will ever embrace probabilistic forecasting. Like it or not, we set the bar very high decades ago, and it's up to us to reach it. Very good article, and a very interesting read. So thank you, Chris, for sending that in. Rob Heron sent in a note that we have a severe event coming up for the Midwest that could be an overnight wind event, and suggested that we make one of the NWS's office set up the weather radio help sites one of the picks of the week, so maybe we could throw that onto the website this week as well. Just a suggestion, says we have a great show. And then Tony Smithson went just completely over the deep end and sent in 13 guest suggestions. So Bill, I hope you got that list. Most of them are out of the Kansas area, and his number 9 is we need to track down Gary England, which I believe we have on an upcoming show, Bill, correct?
Ask and ye shall receive, Monday, July 21st, Gary England with
all right, so that's
Shelby
one off
Hayes.
the list.
Yep.
So a couple of great forecasters, and so yes, so thank you for sending in that list. I'm sure Bill will get right on that, and that should book us through probably the end of the year.
Yeah, Christmas or something.
Wilson Sweet sent the article about the All Britain pulling the plug on the 3 ABC affiliates, including James's station, and I missed part of that because I had to go do a promo. Yeah.
Yeah, we're just going off the air. I'm unemployed, and that's all you need to know. So
James, that's not cool.
My full-time job will be hosting WeatherBrains. This massive salary I'm raking in here, so I have no worries.
And he'll be living in a van down by the river.
That's right, a van. Oh man, river. Yeah.
I live in a van down by the river.
Well, this show's going down the tubes fast.
Oh, pretty soon he'll be doing the El Nino.
10 minutes to show, 10 minutes to show.
Oh, that's my cue. All right, we'll do another
10
one.
minutes to show.
Let's see. There is a potential WeatherBrains one-on-one. This was from an SPC mesoscale discussion. What is an MCV? And I believe it's a mesoscale convective vortex?
Convective vortex, yes. Okay. Old comma head looking thing, yeah. Those are great.
Yeah. So, and then
we'll put Professor Peters on that one.
Okay, so Professor Peters, that goes to him. And then also Bubba says, and that came in from Bubba Skinner, Bubba says he loves the show, including the 6th grade humor, though he thinks he is quoting a WeatherBrains listener who said Brian was boring, so maybe that wasn't the best comment. And then we also got a listener survey response from Heather Reed, who found the show through the weather blog. So thank you, Heather, for sending that in. And we appreciate all of those emails and articles. And there was an article about the, what was that article? The female named storm. Someone sent that in, and I can't find it now. The female named storm kills more people than the male named storms.
Okay, we're going to talk about that in news.
Okay, well, I haven't read the article.
I have.
Okay, so I will do that. It's been a busy day, a busy week for me. It's been a whirlwind, and I'll have updates on that shortly. So if you have an email, you can send that to email@weatherbrains.com. You can find us on the Facebook, on the Twitter. I gotta go do a show. I'll be back in a little bit, and yeah, take it away, guys.
Yeah, what's so bad? I've got to go change clothes here, and I'm not going to do that in front of this camera, so I'm going to turn the show and the floor over to Nate Johnson. Trust me, you don't want to see me changing shirts. It's ugly.
All right, so the big piece of news that our friend James was talking about that Aubrey mentioned there just a minute ago, study has come out to be published in the Proceedings of the National Academies of Science. This is not one of these vanity journals that people pay to get their stuff in just so they can have it published. This is legitimate stuff. A research study basically making the claim that people don't take hurricanes with female names as seriously as they take hurricanes with male names. They went back and looked at the historical record and found that female-named hurricanes killed almost twice as many people. If you look at the entire period of record, they also did some psychological experiments based on some of the theory to tease out whether or not people are explicitly being sexist or whether it's a sort of an implicit thing. And what they found was that nobody's intentionally going out and being sexist about it, but that they've got these sort of internal sort of implicit biases that express themselves in ways like this. So that's the study, and we've already got a couple of folks sort of calling question on this, calling maybe shenanigans, if you will. One pointed out, Jeff Lazo from the University Center for Atmospheric Research out in Boulder, Colorado, said, for one thing, you can't just look at all of the hurricanes since the beginning of named hurricanes, because we only used female names for the first 20 or 25 years up until 1979, and as with just about everything else, the death rates and the total number of deaths as a result of hurricanes, with a couple of notable exceptions, has been trending much lower since we started naming hurricanes. And so that's one thing that calls into question. There's some other issues that folks have had with some of the technique in the experiments, but overall it's a very interesting study, because it's, even if you take out the historical piece, you still have some of the psychological tests that suggest that maybe there is something that might manifest itself as people not taking female-named hurricanes as seriously as male-named hurricanes. So that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Obviously, the one thing was there's not really enough data to draw a statistically significant conclusion if we only go from the amount of time since 1979 where we've used both male and female names. But that's something to watch in the coming days and the coming years as we get more into that. Also, just goes to show you that the number of factors that people use when they decide how they're going to respond to something like a hurricane, there's so many of them. And some of them we don't even know are out there. The Donald Rumsfeld's unknown unknowns, if you will. Things that we think we understand that maybe we don't understand as well as we think. All right, speaking of things that we'd like to understand. Oh, go ahead, Bill.
Nate, can I add something real quick? This is not the first time this has come up. In 1954, Dr. Scala probably, pays attention to this because it happened in his region. But Hurricane Carol, devastated Long Island and southern New England, and there were editorials after that storm that said that the name Carol was, associated with being a nice person, and that some people did not believe that storm would be as dangerous because of it. And I used to scoff at that, until this article came out. Any comments, Dr. Scala?
Well, these names are known 6 years in advance now. So are we going to be able to say ahead of time whether we're going to be in good shape or not? And whether we're going to respond accordingly? They can look at the list and say, okay, the third named storm comes online. I'm going to be okay with it.
Yeah. So speaking of things that we'd like to understand better, about a week and a half ago, during I wouldn't call it an outbreak, but there was a good bit of severe weather going on, and Rick, you may have more inside information on this than I do, but we had a firewall outage. The Weather Service is blaming an outage on getting warnings out on a firewall outage that ran not quite an hour, about 45 minutes or so on a Thursday about a week and a half ago. This is when we had severe weather in the mid-Atlantic over toward Denver. We had a tornado actually touch down near Albany that day. This is according to the Andrew Friedman's article on Mashable.com. And they're talking about two things. One, that the firewall, they had an issue. They were trying to do something with the firewall, and it didn't work. They're actually actively trying to maintain or do something on the firewall, and it failed. But they were also mentioned in the article of, quote, instances of any external NWS chat users who violated agreed-to terms of use, end quote. And that's very interesting to me because at that point, you had the Weather Service was trying to get information out any way they could, and the normal way of getting them out through WarnGen, through the software, pushing it out on the satellite feed and generating the products that we're all used to seeing, the bullets and the uppercase and all that kind of stuff. None of that was working for some of these offices. And so they were going to Facebook and Twitter and everywhere else trying to get this word out. And then now we're finding out that at least some folks are being investigated. Rick, do you have any insight into that, or they told you what they might have been concerned about? Obviously, if you sign up for NWS chat, there's certain things you agree to not share publicly. Work product, the Weather Service is working on a warning that they haven't typed it up yet, so you're not supposed to go on TV and say, the Weather Service is working on a warning, that sort of thing. Is that what was that what they're looking at, or what do you know?
I honestly don't know exactly. And
I'm putting you on the spot, by the way. That's not fair for me to do that. I'm not trying to.
No, that's okay. I honestly don't know. I don't know exactly what they're looking at. It probably has something to do with that. I mean, when you were granted access to NWS chat as a broadcaster or an emergency manager or someone in the public safety field, there's a terms of use agreement that you have to agree to, and you have to re-up that every year and agree to that every year. And there's certain things you can't do. It's privileged information in a way. It's designed to help all of our partners who help us, get the message out to save lives. I honestly don't know any of the details of what went on, but I thought that was interesting too.
Okay. Well, I suspect we got a number of NWS folks. If you'd like to send us an anonymous note, let me know. Your anonymity is guaranteed to the extent that I can guarantee it, which is not much. So if you don't want your name attached to it, don't send it to me. Okay. The Global Hawks, these drones. We may not be able to use them for TV, but we are using them for hurricanes. NASA is going to be widening the research mission for these drones, or what they're called Severe Storm Sentinel, Hurricane and Severe Storm Sentinel, or HS3. It'll be the third year in a row that they've sent these sort of unmanned hurricane hunters out. This is interesting and I think important because these things have a lot larger reach than the manned flights do. The C-130s is only so far that they can fly out and make it back to a safe place in terms of fuel and safety and everything else. The drones can go a lot farther, and so for some of these farther away storms, we'll be able to get data where we wouldn't be able to get recon data before. So I think that's a really exciting thing. Look for that. The flights will actually launch from the Wallops Island Flight Facility in Virginia, and they're saying that they'll run through the peak of hurricane season, which they're saying is August 26th to September 29th. So that's going to be interesting to see the data from that. Speaking of data, and too bad James isn't here to buzz me on this, but the Yale Project on Climate Change Communication published a study and found that the phrase global warming is associated with greater public understanding, emotional engagement, and support for personal and national action than the term climate change. In other words, if you want to get people to care about it, call it global warming. If you want people to ignore it or to think it's just natural, call it climate change. That's basically... That's it in a nutshell. That's not their words. Those are my words. But going to be interesting to see that played out. I know that's word choice means a lot, and I think that's going to be interesting to see. I suspect we'll probably see people wanting more action, calling it global warming more concretely, and folks saying, "Hey, climate change is no big deal." Probably sticking with climate change. And finally tonight, we have dust storms, haboobs, if you will, but they're happening in the other part of the world, in the Middle East. We had a dust storm that killed 5 people, according to CNN, and injured at least 30 when a dust storm rolled through the Iranian capital of Tehran. The storm brought winds nearly 75 miles per hour, according to CNN quoting Iranian press TV. And some of the pictures, I actually saw the story on the CBS Evening News tonight, were really impressive, and dust coming in and sort of darkening everything out. Even delayed some flights at the international airport in Tehran. Was not immediately clear how the victims were killed or injured, though. I think that'll be interesting to see how the dust storm killed people. But anyway, that is all the news we have. If you have any news items, or if you'd like to comment on the news we heard tonight, send me a note. You can find me email at weatherbrains.com or tweet me at NSJ. I'm also on Facebook and also on Google+. All right, now it is the time of the program where we go around the table and talk about picks of the week. This can be anything weather-related, but it can be a website, Twitter account, Facebook page, can be a book, a movie, what have you. And we'll start to see. Aubrey's not here, so we'll start with Bill Murray. I'm just looking across my row of icons as they show up on my machine here. Bill Murray, pick of the week, sir.
Yeah, on July the 28th, Dr. Pam Knox, who is a climatologist for the Georgia Extension Service, will be on talking about agriculture, something we really haven't talked about and is a critical thing. We went to the Mountain Film Festival in Telluride last weekend, and of course it is an environmental directed film festival. We're actually going to have the folks from the documentary Water Wars on the show in a few weeks. They're talking about the water wars between Georgia, Florida, and Alabama over the Chattahoochee River and the Flint River in Georgia. So that's going to be interesting. But one of the things that we talked about over there, was this big agriculture that we do today and some of the challenges that it faces in the future, and particularly as some of that relates to climate change. So Pam Knox will be on July 28th, and I've got her blog as my pick of the week this week. Aubrey already mentioned that Gary England is going to join us on the 21st. Excited about that. And Nate, the next 4 panelists in June are no slouches. Ken Heidemann from AMS Books will join us, along with Jeff Craven, the president of the National Weather Association, next Monday night. One of my favorite folks, Susan Jasko, will be on June the 16th. Then Mark Mancuso, who everyone remembers from his days at the Weather Channel, now at AccuWeather, he'll be on the 23rd. And hurricane and typhoon chaser Jim Edds had a phenomenal experience with Super Typhoon Haiyan in the Philippines this year. Will be on the 30th. And Nate, that's some of the guests coming up on WeatherBrains.
All right, Dr. John Scala, pick of the week, sir.
Yeah, Nate, this year so far, 4 fatalities associated with lightning strikes. Terrible situation, obviously, but I came across an article which documents an anniversary this week. Actually, it's June the 6th, 1980, when a 62-year-old man who had been blinded in an earlier accident and also lost most of his hearing was in fact struck by lightning near his home. And I'm looking to see where exactly his home was, but Portland, he was near Portland. And he was struck by lightning, and after that, he was able to see again. He recovered his hearing, and this man who was bald began to grow hair. That's my pick of the week.
I'm going to go stand out in a thunderstorm.
Yeah, let's see. Get struck by lightning and have to start paying for hair care products. No, I'm good. I'm good losing it. It's okay. Rick Smith, pick of the week, sir.
My pick of the week is from the Iowa Environmental Mesonet. If anybody's ever gone poked around some of their site, they have some amazing stuff there. And I know everybody, if you're on Twitter and Facebook, you've seen these graphics people have been posting lately. It's a national map with all the county warning areas, and it'll say, here's the number of days since this office has issued a tornado warning. And, well, this is a little secret. You can go on this site, this IEM severe weather site, and do those yourself for any kind of product. So you can calculate for any office around the country how many days it's been since they've issued a severe thunderstorm warning, a flash flood warning, or whatever. There's ways to get shape files of all the watches and warnings. There's the IEM Cal, which is an excellent tool to look at preliminary warning notification. I use this a lot. We have a wonderful Mesonet, Oklahoma Mesonet just down the hall, but Iowa Environmental Mesonet, IEM, and Daryl Hertzman and the whole crew over there do some amazing stuff. So that's my pick of the week.
All right, thank you, sir. Vernon Turner, pick of the week.
All right, I'm glad I'm back for like the very end. Gotta love the power outages here in the Mississippi Delta. But something I found interesting, just back on April 28th, we had that nasty outbreak down here on those 3 days events. Definitely Louisville down here in Mississippi got hit pretty hard with that EF4 tornado, and we had a lot of people calling in to talk about a lot of history buffs or just weather geeks talking about, when was the last tornado that hit here, and of course, as a, being in a time crunch, as much as I would love to always go back and just say, okay, this tornado hit back in 1960, such and such. But tornadoproject.com is a great tool that I use now to send to my viewers, and as far as just get information regarding tornado events. It goes back, I know it's back into the 50s, and it's not only just for Mississippi, but the entire nation. So, I mean, I can go to North Carolina and just pick out a county, and it has the entire listing of each tornado event listed there. And it's really, of course, National Weather Service has their records too, but I think this website is more of a easier for the regular viewer. But and of course, for another good read as far as a blog, I can direct people to my blog that I will pretty much write tonight about why the power is going out in the Mississippi Delta when it's only sprinkling outside. So definitely a very interesting night. But of course, I'm still glad to be a part of it, even for the last 15, 20 minutes.
Excellent. My pick of the week is a follow-up to the female hurricane named story. This is a blog entry on the National Geographic's Phenomena website talking about some critique of that article that's being published in the Proceedings in the National Academies of Science. And most interesting, I think, is that the authors of the article have actually come in and explained some of the methodological questions on there. So I think I think we're seeing science sort of playing out there and folks engaging in a debate to talk about the strengths and weaknesses of that study. So I think that's going to be a good read. I just came across the comments just now, so I can't comment on them, but I'm looking forward to reading that. And I think that's great that the authors chime back in with their thoughts. So with that, that's sort of the end of the formal program. But Vernon, we got you online tonight. And tell us a little bit about yourself and how you wound up in the Mississippi Delta from, you obviously have a connection to me at NC State, but how did you wind up in Mississippi?
Okay, let me be quick because I don't know how long I'm going to be on now. But of course, graduated from NC State back in 2012, and of course, before I left, I was honored with the teachings of you, Mr. Nate Johnson. And no, of course, I'm not saying that just so you can go back and change my grade to an A instead of that B plus you gave me. But
if I had that kind of power, oh man.
But yeah, 2 months after graduating, I was enjoying my fun employment, and yeah, that's what I call my employment. Fun employment, yes. And got a call here, the CBS affiliate down here called and said, "Hey, we need you down here." Started off during weekends and worked weekends for 6 months, and then got bumped up to chief. And it's been an interesting time down here. Not only just because I learned where the nation's corn comes from, but
don't tell Iowa.
see, of course that is true, but they come visit me, and I would be like, okay, down here is like a close second. But it's been very interesting covering weather down here. I never would have thought living in Greenville, Mississippi, I would cover as much winter weather. I'm pretty sure James can agree with that as far as the snowfall and the freezing rain we got this past winter. Of course, the people down here act like it was Armageddon. So definitely social media was key in those times because no one power went out and people would just have their phones and just the little communication that we did have sometimes. But definitely an interesting time, and I love it down here. But I can already tell by the way the spring is going, it's going to be a hot and humid summer once again down here. and I'm going to enjoy waking up at 2 o'clock in the morning, and it's already 98 degrees. So
There you go. Any questions for Vernon? All right. Well, we'll wrap it up there. Vernon, how can we get a hold of you, find you on Twitter, Facebook, email? If somebody wants to hire you for your next big jump to the NBC Nightly News, how can folks get a hold of you?
Well, of course, I can be reached. I'm on Twitter follow me at VLT Weather. Of course, I'm on Facebook as well. Just search meteorologist Vernon Turner. I have my YouTube page. You can just search VL Turner 12. Excuse me there. But of course, I'm always willing to spread my talents wherever. I will not be like LeBron James and just go to South Beach. I will go wherever I am called for. And of course, the North Carolina is home, but I can always visit and go anywhere. So definitely.
Speaking of home, I'd be remiss. How's your mom doing?
My mom, she is doing lovely, and of course, and my family as well, because my mom lives in Fayetteville, and Nate, I remember you contacted me back when Elizabeth City got hit by those tornadoes, and glad to say that everyone is safe and sound, even my grandmother who just turned 99.
Wow!
Wow!
Good deal. Well, hopefully,
what does she attribute her longevity to, Vernon?
Having great grandchildren, right, Vernon?
Yeah.
Let's go with that. Like great grandchildren. Now, she's just live life with no regrets. That's what she always used to tell me as a kid. So,
what was her favorite story of all time that she told you, Vernon?
Gosh, favorite story. There's so many. I would honestly, I think her favorite story was talking about my dad and his brothers and sisters and how much trouble they got into and how much stress they gave her, to the point where they would always fight, because she had 7 kids, which of course for her, her generation, that's on the I guess smaller end, because on my mom's side she has 14 brothers and sisters, so definitely a big family on both sides. But she always told my dad he was her baby, and how he was the munchkin of the bunch, and then come to find me, I'm his child, and I'm standing at 6'6", so it makes no sense. That's all.
Now, Vernon, did she live in Greenville in the Delta in the 1920s during the big flood, 1927?
She did not. She's been in Elizabeth City, the Pasco County area, pretty much all her life. So.
All right, darn. I thought I was going to get a Mississippi River 1927 flood story out of it.
No. There are some Turners down here, but the last time I checked, I'm not sure if I'm related to the Turners down here.
All right. Well, Vernon, we appreciate you being on the program tonight, and all the best luck to you, and we'll see you next time you wander out this way.
All right, now. I'll be there in early July.
Okay. Well, give me a call. Stop by. All right. This has been WeatherBrains. This is June 2nd, 2014. WeatherBrains is the All About the Weather netcast. You can find us live on Monday nights via Google Hangout. You can also find us on on YouTube after the program wraps up. We're also in podcast form on Stitcher and iTunes and all the good stuff, so use your favorite podcasting app to find us. So we love getting the comments, by the way. You give us iTunes comments, and we love hearing from you. Shoot us an email at weatherbrains.com. That's for anything, whether it's a listener survey response or show title suggestions or guest suggestions, or if you've got comments, or if you want to sound off about something you've heard here, if you wish to opine, you can shoot us a note. We'd love to hear from you. We're also on Twitter at WeatherBrains. We actually organized around the hashtag WXB tonight. That seemed to work pretty well, so we'll sort of adopt that for our official hashtag going forward for show nights. Also, you can find us on Facebook. We're on WeatherBrains, and of course, we're on Google Plus at Plus WeatherBrains. So we'd love to hear from you. Just reach out and find us. And as Bill mentioned, we've got an exciting lineup of guests coming for the next few weeks, including the current president of the National Weather Association. The abstract deadline for oral presentations has come and gone, although I am told that if you've got a really compelling one, they might consider a late entry there. But poster abstracts are still welcome for submission until the end of this week. I think on Saturday is the last day for that. And of course,
are you doing a presentation, Nate?
I threw my hat into the ring and for a couple of different ones. I don't want to take the covers off of that quite yet, but let's just say Susan Jasko is involved, and if we get approved, we're gonna have some fun. It's gonna be some good stuff.
Well, that's a shoe in right there. If you got her involved.
I hope so. So,
hey, Nate, did you pick 2 winners for Tiffany's book tonight?
I did. I know I picked one, and let me go in and pick the other one. Although, can I pick myself? Because I'd love to have a copy. Let's see. Tim Bryce would be one of them. I mean, we read at least 2 of his tweets on the air tonight. So Tim Bryce will be one of our folks. And let me scan through and see if I've got another one. Got some really good conversation tonight, and we appreciate everybody chiming in on Twitter. Unfortunately, we can't get all these on the webcast. I'm going to go with Joe Moore as the second book winner, WX Joe. I had some actually shared. For those who think that Facebook is dead and buried and no longer cool to young people, he's sharing an article from Slate. Maybe not dead and buried for teens. So for that, sharing that, we'll give a copy of the book to Joe Moore and a copy to Tim Bryce.
We'll
so there you
get
go.
Those in the mail for you as soon as I get back to Alabama.
There you go. And if the both of you can direct message me, NSJ, with an address, I will forward that on to Mr. Murray, and we'll get those books out to you.
I think I got in trouble earlier tonight, Nate, with James.
Oh.
Did you see that subtle little slap for the Roll Tide thing? Did you get that?
I got that. Half the state upset if you pick a position. We have that here. To me, I think that makes you more human. It makes you more interesting to people. If I went to state. I'm a state guy. My wife went to Texas A&M. I pick sides. Although, John, somebody on Twitter asked, "Do you?" And we can't really tell for sure. But do you have both Packers and Bears paraphernalia behind you, or what? Somebody on Twitter asking you need to pick a side.
Oh no, it's all Packers. That's
okay.
Bart Starr. That's an autographed picture of Bart Starr to me.
Okay.
Alabama quarterback, by the way.
I thought you'd notice that, Bill.
Speaking of Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
Any other closing comments before we wrap up the show tonight?
Great show. Thanks, everybody.
That's good. Yep, great conversation.
It was so cool to have 3 organic experts. Well, more than that. I mean, everybody on this panel is a social media pro.
I am heavily modified.
You're a GMO. Okay. We have 1 GMO and 2 organic social media pros tonight on the show. That was awesome.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We appreciate you being on the program tonight. And until next time, I am not James Spann. Good night, and God bless.
Awesome.
All right, thanks, guys. Thanks. We'll see you guys next week.
I'll see you Friday, John.
Yes, Bill. I'll see you then.
All right, maybe I'll run into you, I hope, sometime this weekend, Rick.
Bill, when are you going to be here?
I'll drive up Friday. I think I'm going to drive up Thursday night and have dinner with a friend who I owe a steak from the Sugar Bowl for the OU victory.
Okay.
And, so maybe I can get over and say hello or something on Friday morning.
Well, I'm actually traveling to Memphis this weekend for my wife's nursing school reunion, so I won't be around. I'll miss you this time, I guess.
Oh, darn. Well, say hello to everybody for me, and I'm not sure exactly where our meetings are. I know we're over at the Postal Training Center, but
okay.
I'm sure we'll come over to the office for our meeting, so we'll be in the neighborhood on Friday.
Okay, we'll stop by and say hi to someone.
All right.
See ya.
Well, thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Take care. We'll see you.
Bye.
See ya.
Ooh. Let me turn my camera back on here. Hey. Hey, Aubrey is still on here. I guess we're both doing the late news. It is always creepy to me how many people are still watching this. All right, so it's 10:35 Central. My newscast is over. Aubrey probably is wrapping hers up. 11:35 there. Now, great discussion tonight. The social media thing is very interesting. In fact, I wish we had more time to talk about it because there are a lot of challenges and a lot of things I could do better. And I think for all of us, the thing we struggle with is time. Time is precious. The great equalizer in life is time. Everybody, I don't care who you are, everybody is 24 hours in a day. And how you spend that really determines who you are. And for all of us that work social media pretty heavily, we are investing a lot of time in that time we could be spending with our families or, doing other things at work or doing, some type of community work. And, I think we all wonder, is it worth it? I do think by building up this large audience, it will be great currency that will be used maybe in the next generation or maybe in mine. I don't know. But I know that we're onto something, and it's very powerful. It's scary. Kevin Selly said many times his concern is the fact that we don't have any control, and we don't. We are bringing eyeballs to the table for these social media platforms, and we're not getting paid for it or compensated. But again, I think it's very important. And like I talked about, what I just did back here, who's watching the late news? They're probably in their 60s, 70s, and 80s. And even I would venture to say most of those people found out what the weather's going to do today on their phone. Ooh, guess what's on my phone, by the way? iOS 8. Ooh. By the way, that's our station raccoon. I don't know if you can see that guy. We have 2 cats and a raccoon that live in the parking lot. That's our raccoon. Now, I've not had time to play with it today. One of the cool things up there at the top, when you double-click the home button, all of a sudden the contacts that you have are there. Within that, you can make a call or text them or something. There's all kind of cool stuff here, and it's amazingly stable. But anyway, back to what I was saying. Our struggle. This business has been wonderful for us. We have made a wonderful living off of doing television weather over the years. It has, been a great way for my family. I've supported my family, a great way we've survived and thrived. And now you watch all the local news numbers just slowly coming down. And I'm afraid a lot of television people are in denial. And I think it's like the newspaper people were 10 years ago. And in my market, the local daily's only printing, I think, 3 days of the week, and I would imagine they'll be down to printing 1, a Sunday paper here pretty soon. And many jobs went away. And all those guys said the same thing. Oh, this is a great American tradition. The newspaper will never go away. Well, come on. Its time has passed, and the same thing for these traditional television newscasts. Now, a 30-minute local television block, you can get a lot of people watching that. But with that old format, no. The Brick Tamlin, Ron Burgundy, Champ Kind, Brian Fantana thing. Good evening, here's the news. Come on. People consume the news today. Even my mom's in her 80s, and she consumes the news on an iPad during the day. And most people consume the news based on their political worldview. They go to these partisan sites and sources. If they lean left, they go to the left-wing sites, and if they lean right, they go to the right-wing sites. So we just have to come up with a better way of filling that 30-minute block, or in the case of earlier different things, I think. And I've got some ideas, but anyway, we'll see. And like I was talking about with these new owners, they're turning us off. 3340 won't even exist here in a few months if they get their wish. So I might be forced to come up with a new way of making a living. But anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Again, if you're new to this, you kind of get the idea. We start the YouTube version about 10 minutes before the show starts. We get people on, and then when I have to go do television, I have the ball here. The show is produced with a computer. I don't have a board, by the way, no mixer. It's all done within software on a MacBook Pro. But if I come back and there's nobody here, I just meander and talk nonsense like this. So thanks for watching. We'll be back on Monday night next week. We got some vacation schedules coming up later this month. I know one Monday night I'll be out of town. We'll adjust that for the last Monday night of the month, but I think we'll be back next Monday. So that's it. Y'all have a great week. Good night. God bless, and goodbye.